to see the teddy bears are here to play. If you don't come play with.
Welcome to Frightened Female. This is Crystal. Happy Halloween. It is the end of October, my favorite time of year. I hope you guys all have great plans to celebrate your holiday. Let's just jump right into the scary stories. With that, let's begin. Back when I was little, around 4th, 5th grade, I went trick-or-treating with my brother, who was a little bit older, and his best friend, Luke. It was the first time our parents let us go out alone, and that was a privilege for us. Now, our neighborhood was very safe and well lit, so there was little need for worry, and we promised our parents to stay close to the house and that we'd be back at a reasonable time. Now, there were trick-or-treaters everywhere that night, and almost all of the homes were decorated in spider webs and skeletons. It was a really magical time for me. So after about 2 hours, our bags were pretty full, and I remember that my shoes were killing my feet. We got home and immediately dumped our candy out in piles and began checking out what each other got. So my favorite candy at the time, not so much anymore, were Tootsie Rolls. And as I sifted through my pile of candy, I noticed that I didn't get a single one of them. My brother got 2, and I noticed that Luke had like 3 or 4. And I was upset because we had all gone to the same exact houses. I figured theirs were probably from one of those candy mix bags, and I just happened to get unlucky. I wasn't going to ask his friend if I could have one of his. I thought that'd be rude since he was our guest. "Can I have one of your Tootsie Rolls?" I asked my brother. I didn't get any in my bag. So he then cupped his pile with his arms. "No way, you're not getting any of my candy." So I begged him again in hopes that maybe Luke would offer me one of his, but he didn't. They just laughed. I saw a kid on the playground the other day swallow one of these whole without chewing it. They dared him to swallow the Tootsie Roll. "What?" I said. "That's so dangerous." "No, it's not," said Luke. "Watch, I'll do it." So we picked up one of the Tootsie Rolls, quickly unwrapped it, and threw it in his mouth. My brother started laughing as his friend forced the candy piece down his throat. I could tell he was struggling a bit, but he finally took a harder gulp and forced it all the way down. "You're stupid, Luke," I said. "You could have choked." "Yeah, but I didn't," he replied. He looked at my brother and said, "I dare you to do it." "No problem. Watch me." So my brother grabbed a Tootsie Roll and began to unwrap it. "No," I said sternly. "Stop it." But it was too late. He popped the candy in his mouth and did a single forced gulp. He started to cough a little bit, which scared me. But he managed to complete the challenge, and then he gave his friend a high five. I was furious as I got up and said, "I'm going to go tell Mom that you guys are swallowing candy, and she's going to take all yours away and send Luke home." I began to head down into the dead room where my parents were watching TV, when my brother stopped me and said, "Oh, okay. I'll let you have my other Tootsie Roll if you don't tell on us, please." So I hesitated and walked back. "Okay, that's fair. Just don't do it anymore." So I quickly grabbed his other Tootsie Roll and unwrapped it. "See, guys, you're supposed to chew it like this," I said, placing it in my mouth. Within seconds, I felt my teeth hit sharp metal and a stab that was so excruciating it went halfway through my tongue. I screamed as I spit out the candy, followed by blood dripping from my mouth. I screamed, and we all shot up. "Mom! Dad!" my brother screamed. They rushed into the kitchen shortly after. Mom ran right over to me and let out a cry. "What happened?" she said, panicked. My brother told my father that I had bitten into a Tootsie Roll and all of a sudden spit it out, and then my mouth began bleeding. "Where's the piece?" he asked. I pointed to it on the floor. My mom held a rag to my mouth as my father grabbed the candy and took it over to the counter under better lighting. We were horrified at what we discovered next. Inside my partially bitten Tootsie Roll was a sharp metal sewing needle. My parents told the boys to stay put while they rushed me to the hospital. I recovered with a small stab wound that went halfway through my tongue, but on the drive back home, I thought about the boys and their candy stunt. And what if my brother had chosen my piece with the needle inside to swallow? What's even more scary is that someone in our well-to-do neighborhood planned this malicious act. Problem of finding out who was a nightmare that would never be solved. I hadn't trick-or-treated since that night. I was never big on Halloween growing up. I thought dressing up every year just to get candy was rather boring and pointless. So while in high school, I lived with my father and saw my mom on the weekends, who lived about an hour away. The Halloween of my junior year, my father was working late, and I was at home with my girlfriend of a couple months watching a movie. My dad had bought a bowl of candy to hand out to the kids. He had set it on the counter, but I made the extra effort of not answering the door. I didn't feel like passing out bubble gum and lollipops. We had about 15 knocks at the door, but that was all. After the movie, we grabbed a snack from the kitchen and dug through the candy bowl, picking out all the good stuff. "Hey, you want to check out the old Fred shed?" I asked her with a grin on my face. "What? The old Fred? What's that?" she said. So, at the end of my street, there was a fielded area with a few abandoned structures on the property, including a small rickety farmhouse that kids from the school called the Old Fred Shed. Supposedly, the man that used to own it was named Old Man Frederick, thus the Old Fred Shed. I had been out there with some of my buddies one time before, but we never went inside. And you could visibly see it from my driveway if you squinted hard enough down the street. "Yeah, let's check it out. But don't try anything to scare me or something like that," she laughed. "I won't," I promised, as I went to the garage to grab us some flashlights. There were a few straggling trick-or-treaters as we headed on down the street, but it pretty much had died down, and even though the town had posted a large "No Trespassing" sign on the gate that blocked the field, we hopped right past it. The grass was dry and crispy underneath our shoes, and it was eerily silent. The moon was thankfully brighter than usual, but our flashlights were necessary once we got inside the abandoned house. The porch was super rickety, and the front door, although boarded once before, swung open easily with just a simple tug. The smell inside was overwhelming. It wasn't a rotten stench, but more musty, a little difficult to breathe. We shined our flashlights all over, tipped over chairs, old peeled wallpaper, rusty vintage appliances. It was creepy to say the least. So we walked down a tiny hallway and into another room on the left. As we stood in the middle, shining our flashlights, we heard footsteps behind us. We froze and stared at each other in a sudden fear. I grabbed her hand and we slowly crept into the hallway. As I stood motionless, staring down toward an entryway right at the end, the silhouette of a tall man appeared through the darkness. My girlfriend gasped. "I see I have some visitors," his voice rasped. "What the hell are you doing here?" he shouted as he started walking toward us. I grabbed my girlfriend by the arm and we booked it. We ran so fast, barely escaping without falling through the floorboards. She had even dropped her flashlight. The field seemed twice as long running back home. We didn't dare look back until we reached my living room, slammed the door behind us, and secured the lock. We shut all the blinds and curtains. "That was freaky," she said, still trembling. "I know, I wasn't expecting someone to be in there." We were still out of breath from running. "Was he running after us?" I shrugged. I didn't want to look back. Scary thing is that you can see this house from the field. "But we'll be okay," I assured her. "My dad should be home like any minute." And I was right on that. He pulled in not even 5 minutes after we got back. He walked inside. "Hey guys, what's going on? Hey, how many kids did we get this year? Did you hand out a lot?" The full bowl of candy was a giveaway that I didn't give out any at all. "Nah, we left and went exploring for a while. It didn't look like too many kids were out anyways." He said, "Did you guys have anyone over just now?" We shook our heads. "Nah, just us. Why?" He paused. As I was pulling up, some guy was running down the street. Looked like they left from our porch. "I'll check the surveillance." My blood grew cold. Her and I gave each other that look, like, holy crap. Could it have been the man that we saw in the old house that followed us? Well, it was pretty late at this point, and my girlfriend did have a curfew. So I cautiously walked her out to her car, looking up and down the road, and then toward the direction of the field again. All was quiet and dark. So we kissed each other goodbye, and then I headed back inside once she had left. My father was already on the computer reviewing the footage. He was obsessed with surveillance cameras. We had them indoors and outdoors. Yet, ironically, no security system. So I went into the kitchen to grab a soda when I heard my dad shout, "Hey, come here. Check this out." So I went over to his little office area as he played video of my girlfriend and I running back into the house after leaving the field. "What the hell were you two running from?" he asked. So I explained that we went exploring and we saw someone in the old field house that was coming at us. So the surveillance kept playing after it showed us going inside. And then all of a sudden, out of the bottom corner of the screen, a man was seen approaching our porch, dressed in all black, carrying what appeared to be a hatchet. The man looked familiar. He peered into the front window, which thankfully we had shut the blinds and the curtains. He paced back and forth in front of the house, also looking through the kitchen window. Then, by the grace of God, the perpetrator caught a glimpse of my father's approaching headlights coming down the street, and that's when he booked it. If it weren't for my dad, Lord knows what could have happened as I walked my girlfriend out to her car to say goodnight. Let's just say, not only did I get 0 sleep that night, but my dad kept a loaded gun by his side. Thankfully, the man never appeared again, but that is the last time I'll step foot in that field. Wow, those are some pretty scary stories. And you know, as fun as Halloween can be, it does have its dangers and its dark side. So it's really important to be safe. Aside from the modern day, you know, wearing costumes and trick-or-treating, I kind of wanted to learn more about the true origins of Halloween and why certain things are the way they are. The first thing that I thought of is, why is a carved pumpkin called a jack-o'-lantern? And I never knew, so upon more research, this is what I found. It's called the Tale of Stingy Jack and the Jack-o'-lantern. So this is how it got its name. So, and this is Irish legend, by the way. Stingy Jack was supposedly this miserable old drunk in the town, and he took pleasure in playing tricks on everyone, from family, friends, his mother, and even the devil himself. So one day the devil came to Stingy Jack, as they nicknamed him, and asked for his soul, because he'd been so cruel, and what better soul does the devil want than a cruel one? And so Stingy Jack told the devil, you know what? Yes, you can take my soul. Just do me one favor. Can you climb this apple tree and pick me one last apple before you take me away? So he was able to trick the devil to go up the tree. Once the devil made it all the way to the top, then Stingy Jack lined the base of the tree with crucifixes. And everybody knows that the devil cannot touch a crucifix. So Satan was pretty much trapped at the top of the tree. And so Stingy Jack would laugh, and he said, I'll let you down and you can go free, but you have to promise not to take my soul when I die. So he had basically played a trick on Satan. So it then says, many years later, Jack did die. And so he went to the pearly gates of heaven, and he was told by St. Peter that he was too mean, too cruel, led such a miserable, worthless life on earth, and he wasn't allowed to enter heaven. So then he went down to hell and saw the devil. And the devil kept his promise and said that he would not allow him to enter hell either. So now Jack was scared. He had nowhere to go but to wander about forever in the dark netherworld between heaven and hell. So he went back to the devil, and he asked the devil, how could he leave? There was no light. He was just walking around in darkness. So the devil tossed him an ember from the flames of hell to help Stingy Jack light his way. So Jack, in his pocket, had a turnip with him. It was one of his favorite foods, and he always carried one. So Jack hollowed out the turnip and placed the ember that the devil had given him inside the turnip. From that day onward, Stingy Jack roamed the earth without a resting place, lighting his way as he went with his jack-o'-lantern. So, and it is true that the Irish, they didn't carve pumpkins. They carved turnips. And it wasn't until they came to America and discovered that the pumpkin was much easier to carve out and much larger, so you can do bigger faces, that they kind of did away with the whole turnip thing. And that's where we adopted pumpkins. So I thought that was very, very interesting. I was also looking at another website as far as the origins of Halloween. And it dates back really, really far, and there's so many different legends. One in particular caught my interest. So according to history.com, it says the tradition of dressing in costume for Halloween was both European and Celtic roots. Hundreds of years ago, winter was an uncertain and frightening time. Food supplies often ran low, and for the many people afraid of the dark, the short days of winter were full of constant worry. On Halloween, when it was believed that ghosts came back to the earthly world, people thought that they would encounter ghosts if they left their homes. So, to avoid being recognized by these ghosts, people would wear masks when they left their homes after dark, so that the ghosts would mistake them for other fellow spirits. Also on Halloween, to keep the ghosts away from their houses, people would place bowls of food outside their homes to appease the ghosts and prevent them from attempting to enter. I thought that was really interesting, and there's a lot of other legends and stories. It's definitely something to look into. A lot of things that I learned that I didn't know about the history of Halloween, but it's still my favorite time of the year. Thank you so much for submitting your guys' stories. If you have a true scary story of your own that you'd like to send me, see the description box below. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Wishing you all a very happy and spooky Halloween. Most importantly, please be safe, be aware of your surroundings, and remember to always lock your door. Scare you later.